So let's start here. The Hawks say several high-profile cases, including the VBS scandal, are now on the court's roll. These are among the over 22,000 cases, totaling about R1 trillion that the Hawks are handling. They involve over 23,000 suspects, and more than 12,000 have been heard in different courts. National head of the Directorate, Godfrey Lebert, gave an update on progress since he assumed office in 2018. I'm joined now by Silindelo Masikane, who was at that briefing. So, Sli, I guess it was a bit of a look what we've done so far.
Yeah.
What were the big points for you before we drill into specific high-profile cases, the big picture?
So, I mean, I think it was quite interesting, Sally. This is the first time we're actually hearing from Lieutenant General Godfrey Lebert ever since he took office back in 2018. So that's about 4 years since he began heading up the Hawks. And, of course, he seems to believe that there are some successes that the Directorate has managed to secure in his tenure, really mentioning, like you've said, the over 22,000 cases, some of those already before the courts, just to mention some of those being ranging from rather fraud, corruption, money laundering, human trafficking, narcotics, wildlife crime even, but of course the big ones being around state capture, COVID-19 corruption, that we are also seeing before the courts. And specifically with state capture, we are seeing arrests made around Busasa, around ESCOM, those contracts that are in question. Also, just mentioning that they will, as part of law enforcement, be dealing with those recommendations from the state capture report, which amount to about 172, which are going to require law enforcement. And of course, questions around what we've seen over the past couple of weeks in terms of Phala Phala, as well as the July unrest specifically, as well as the tavern shootings, which were posed to the head of the Hawks.
All right, let's just take a quick listen.
Evidence that we tabled before the prosecuting authority to make a determination of prosecuting or otherwise is a different matter. There are certain things that may appear in media space, which we obviously take note of that, package those in a form of docket, and after completion, table it before the prosecution. So far, with the arrest of today, we have just passed the 50% mark towards where we would be going with regard to arresting those who played a role. So I wouldn't be indicating who are the others, and we don't necessarily rank them.
All right, so that's in relation to, we've seen quite a momentum in the last 2 weeks around these arrests, linked potentially to the July unrest. That's what he had to say about that. He had to be specifically asked a question about the Phala Phala farm investigation. It wasn't in his readout, was it?
It wasn't. I mean, it was an almost 10-page statement detailing all of the investigations, many of them very much high profile, such as Busasa and ESCOM, a lot of the COVID-19 corruption cases, but nothing on that 2020 farm robbery at the president's farm and allegations of a cover-up. We actually had to ask him in the Q&A into exactly what the Hawks has so far, and the latest now we know is that there are more than 40 statements obtained, but the Hawks head remaining mum on whether the president himself has actually given a statement. Let's take a listen.
Complainant made a statement, and so far we have filed 41 statements in the docket. So I will not deal with the nitty-gritties of the content whose statement is filed in the docket. But rest assured that 41 statement is more than the statement that the complainant shall have filed.
All right. What did he say about the Gupta extradition? Any significant update?
Nothing really, but I'm pretty sure it forms part, Sally, of those state capture recommendations where the Hawks is involved in joint task teams which are looking into the extraditions, even the Bashiri matter in terms of that. The Hawks is certainly involved, but nothing pointedly to say what the Hawks has done in order to secure their return. But I think they're just trying to remain mum until they can actually confirm anything of the sort in terms of their involvement.
Yeah, you know, I think they got their charge sheet in on time, so seems to be things are underway. The tavern shootings, of course, that spate of tavern shootings, at the time the police, there's no direct link, even though there was some sort of similar modus operandi there. But what did Godfrey Lebeya say about those?
I found his answer quite interesting because it doesn't seem the Hawks are involved at all in terms of investigations.
Their priority crime unit, right?
Yes, yes. And I thought, you know, because there are suspicions around possible terrorism, possible organized crime being involved in this particular matter, I would have thought the Hawks at this point would have been involved, but it seems the police are still tasked with that matter, even though we have not seen any arrests in particular with that massive tavern shooting, a massacre really, in Soweto, where we had about 15 people shot and killed in one night. And the Hawks says when they're needed, then they will get involved. Let's take a listen.
We are not dealing with those killings that are taking place at the taverns. The greater service, the detective and forensic services in the South African Police Service are dealing with those matters. So I will not respond to the status of the investigation as to when arrest will be effected in cases of Soweto and the like.
You mentioned VBS. Any specific details on that?
Just to mention that those matters are before the courts. Some high-ranking officials obviously arrested in connection with it. Also mentioning the Frida Dairy Farm project as well as the asbestos one, which we of course know that the suspended SG of the ANC is involved in, Ace Magashule. Also mentioning it as one of those that the Hawks had a very significant involvement in, and really quite pleased, I think, this was just something that the Hawks had, I think, wanted the nation to kind of put their trust in the directorate to say that, look, we are handling these matters. You might not see us talking about it all the time, but I think this briefing, he was trying to show the nation that you can still have confidence in us, especially around allegations that the Hawks may be politically motivated, and which is why we're not seeing, for example, arrests in terms of high-profile people in connection with the July unrest. He was quite pointed to say, look, we investigate without fear and favor, and I think this was his way of trying to show us that some work is being done.
Interesting timing. Thank you so much, Silindelo Masikane, for
Thank you,
that
Sally.
update.